out, you're then applying your colors, you're applying where things should go for your client, etc. Okay, so UX and UI defined. Quick coffee break. UX is user experience. UX designers come up with a general concept, its structure and the flow of interactions, as well as a variety of factors which influence positive and negative user experience. So I'm sure you've all gone to a website and you're like, I just want to know how much shipping's going to cost. Where the hell can I find out what shipping's going to be? Or where is this thing? And it's in some really weird spot that's not intuitive, that doesn't function properly. That's your user experience. So that's where you need to become the pro. So we all know how to work a website. We all know how to run an app. We all know how to do things on our phone because we don't let go of them. All of that experience you need to apply to here now. So instead of just assuming people are going to click there, you got to think, where do you usually click? So that's where that testing comes in handy. Super quick. Okay. User interface are visualizers who find the best solutions for visual performance of the object corresponding to the style, the environment, expectations, aesthetic needs, etc. on the already agreed structure, architecture, structure, and core factors of interaction. So that's where you are going to have a black background and you're not going to put red text on it, because really thin red text, it's going to be really hard on the eyes and no one can see that. You want to make sure that things are bold. If this is for an environmental company that plants trees and all of that, you're not going to design a website that's pink or has monster trucks going across it or some sort of heavy metal font, right? So we always have to put ourselves in the user's shoes and the target's shoes, just like we do in design. We know who our target market is, and that design should apply to that. So essentially, UX, so this is, I like to call this the skeleton of design. So it's simple shapes. We're literally working with boxes and lines, pretty much no copy. And then on this side of things is the UI. So we're now, everything's in the same place, but now we're adding the actual visual elements to it. We're actually adding color to it. So we nail this down first, and then we make it look damn pretty. It's kind of like doing a quick doodle sketch before you go and start designing, right? I don't know if anybody does that. I hated doing sketches in college. I used to think it was useless. I don't do anything now without sketching something out first, because then I'm like a lost puppy online. I'm like, where do I start? You get your frame and then you're like, boom, okay, there it is. And now I'm going to start designing. So the UX designer's thought process, slide this sucker over here. So it's critical thinking and creative thinking. A UX designer's thought process is creative thinking, convergent thinking. So I'm not going to go through all these, but it's just looking at the two different ways. Yes, they very much do overlap at some point, but there's still very distinct differences. So information architecture, project manager, content strategist, functional analysis. So these might be things you guys are like, that's way too technical for me. I don't really jive here. But as a UI designer, you're like, I'm a graphic designer, I'm a brand developer. Yes, I'm a friend, could possibly be a web designer, and I'm a front-end developer. Basic salary, pretty good. UX designer, a little bit more. So you might want to dip into that one. So for instance, user experience design. So this is actually Mohawk College. Michael took this photo. So this is where they decided the sidewalk should go. But this is where people actually go, right? So that is where testing happens. So this is where, as a UX designer, you maybe assume, oh, people want to go all the way around here and walk. But what happens when you start testing, people actually just go, I don't feel like walking that away. The catch up. This is that's like a prime UX UI example. User experience design is the process of enhancing customer satisfaction and loyalty by improving the usability ease of use and pleasure provided in the interaction between the customer and the final product. An approach that incorporates direct user feedback throughout the development cycle in order to reduce costs and create products and tools that meet users' needs. So consider this, you're going to paint a room. Would you just go and buy any paint, start slapping on the walls? Yeah, maybe, if you're like feeling a bit wild. Whoops. A UX designer looks at the room very carefully. Maybe the room is dark and would benefit from a lighter shade. Maybe the color of paint would affect the people using the room. Just like I think in prison, they use yellow, I think, soft colors. You're not going to paint a prison black and make everyone really, really angry all day, every day. So once these decisions are made by surveying and asking questions to potential users of the room, the correct paint color on the walls, the correct paint color and walls that will be painted are selected. So that's UX. What exactly do they do? So a designer's job is to make sure a web product will be successful before it's actually coded. They make the experience of the they make sure the experience of a web user has been navigating. A website flows effortlessly and doesn't confuse the user based on the goals of the product. So all of this stuff is done before you get into paying a designer to code this stuff, because you guys have done that and you know it takes time and it's kind of annoying if you have to go in and change something later. So they make sure a user can complete tasks so they can successfully sign up for newsletters, they can purchase items, all that stuff is outlined before we get to in there. They identify any issues a user may have in performing tasks through surveys and user testing, and then they fix them ahead of time. So while a UX designer's job can involve many different areas of research, their common tasks deals with research, personas, like I said, that's one of our projects, information architecture, some kind of site mapping, creating sketches and wireframes of the products, and testing, and then repeat. I know it sounds annoying, but you pretty much, it's like, you create someone and then someone says, you know, I actually think I go to the top right more often. So you move it to top right and then you give it to them again. They're like, oh, yeah, did I say top right? I actually think I mean top left. So that's why we repeat and we redo all those steps all over again. Just some links, guys, for a little more research. So what is UI? So UI, again, this is XD, and this is where you, make things look pretty. You add your buttons, you add, oh gosh, you add your colors, etc. So again, we'll get into that a little bit more. That's where the visual fun comes in, but we're kind of essentially really diving deep into kind of like sketching first before we get too far. So UI is the design of user's interface for maximizing usability and the user experience. The goal of the user interface design is to make the user's interaction as simple and efficient as possible in terms of accomplishing user goals. So while UX and UI designers can share many tasks, the main job of the UI designer is to build a finished comp of the product. So essentially a website that's flat, it's not function, it's not, you can't really click anything at this stage of the game, everything's just visual, it's like designing a poster. So UI designers are more concerned with the visual look and feel, the branding, the interactivity, and the overall presentation, colors, etc. UI designer will build out the pages of a website in both desktop and mobile formats, unless obviously it's specifically an app. And then a UI designer will also create prototypes of the comp version of the web product to test with users and proof for the client. So we always want to make sure that everything's functioning properly again before it goes into where all the money is, or where a lot of your budget goes, which is coding. So why UI designer and not UX designer? So a UI designer is what users do, and then UX is how they feel. Different things of doing this. So there's a sketch app and there's sticky notes, different ways of finding essentially your research. There's visuals and research, prototyping, wireframing. This is just a little bit on process. I won't bother tapping through all that. Tools, use some UI tools. So again, for design, we have Sketch, Adobe XD, we have all of these, and same with prototyping. But again, this semester we are just going to be doing Adobe XD. So that's all you will need. All of these things will essentially achieve what we will be achieving in XD, but life is going to be so much easier, and we do need to learn how to use this program, because I promise you it's going to help you down the line. And then some more links here. Whew, that was a mouthful.